today I just really wanted to share with you as women, and this is a really different world even than the last time I was here. And this is kind of the defining thing is, even when we go out in public, we can't recognize our own family and friends because everyone's in disguise wearing a mask, And people get super emotional about this. And we've noticed that since we've been back from South Sudan. Things in the United States are much, much different than how they are in South Sudan and how people feel about the mask. In fact, I think that a 4-inch piece of fabric has not caused such controversy since the advent of the string bikini, frankly. And some of us need a little bit more PPE in that department than others, I'll tell you. But anyway, I'm glad you're here, and we'll do our best to remain safe and socially distant and all of that, so please feel comfortable. But today I'm going to ask you, spiritually at least, to remove your mask and for us to be just together and maybe a little bit vulnerable and just to be really real with one another, because that's what we should be in the church. And I'm going to share with you what's really been on my heart, and part of it is related to a story that I've written recently. In fact, it's not yet released. This book is coming out soon. It's called She Writes for Him, Stories of Living Hope. And I'm one of the contributing authors to this. There are 30 stories in here of women who've gone through very difficult circumstances. There's 5 categories: cancer, addiction, abuse, suffering, and mental health. Those are the 5 categories. And the story that I wrote is in the section on abuse. And it's my journey as a parent of an adult child in an abusive relationship that had a really tragic end. And so it's a very small portion of the story. And my daughter and I are actually writing the larger story together. But that's a very long project because you go slowly when you're telling a story that is that difficult to tell. So you get a sneak peek at that story from a mother's perspective in this book, and the message that I want to share with you today comes from the scripture reference that I used when I wrote that story. So that's the connection, and whether you're a mother or not a mother, it applies to all of us because we're all in relationships in the church and with one another. In fact, I think that the family is kind of God's practice ground for us as the church body, where we first get our skills together. It's where we can be our most vulnerable. So today I'm hoping that we can be a little bit vulnerable and just share together. I'm going to read a lot of scripture today, much more than what I usually do, but just to be frank, I can't say it any better than the Word of God, so why should I try, I'm going to break it up, though, in chunks so that you're not just hearing me read for a long period of time. This is all coming from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation because I just really love the way that flows. So I'm going to start at just the beginning of 1 Corinthians chapter 3. It says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I couldn't talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk as though you belonged to the world or as though you were infants in the Christian life. I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger. And you still aren't ready, for you are still controlled by your sinful nature. You are jealous of one another and quarrel with each other. Doesn't that prove you are controlled by your sinful nature? Aren't you living like people of the world? When one of you says, I am a follower of Paul, and another says, I follow Apollos, aren't you acting just like people of the world? After all, who is Apollos? Who is Paul? We are only God's servants through whom you believe the good news. Each of us did the work the Lord gave us. I planted the seed in your hearts, and Apollos watered it, but it was God who made it grow. It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What's important is that God makes the seed grow. The one who plants and the one who waters work together with the same purpose, and both will be rewarded for their own hard work. For we are both God's workers, and you are God's field. You are God's building. Because of God's grace to me, I have laid the foundation like an expert builder. Now others are building on it. But whoever is building on this foundation must be very careful, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one we already have, Jesus Christ. Now, it's really common in the scripture to use farming analogies, and Paul starts out with this farming analogy. I think that's very appropriate when you live in a beautiful community like this, right? We're surrounded by all kinds of beautiful agricultural property. But in the midst, he switches from this farming analogy to a building analogy. And building and construction is going to be our theme for today. The story that I wrote in here is called Building Fairy Tale Castles. And oftentimes, I think that's what we end up doing in the world, as we are building a fairy tale castle, when what we should be doing is building something much more substantial. So I'm wondering what stood out to you in this passage that I just read. And this is going to be kind of interactive if we could. Was there something that I read that kind of stuck with you a little bit?
It's God that makes it grow.
God makes it grow. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else?
Well, the jealousy and quarreling among you, that there's infighting, and he's talking to the body.
He's talking to the body.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in the church today, does it at all?
In our world, no.
Oh my goodness, I have never seen people so divided as what they are today, although I think we have been, but this is really unprecedented, it seems. Yeah. You've hit on a couple of them that I was thinking of. First of all, that idea that Paul is talking to the body. And yet he says, you're acting just like the world. It's very difficult sometimes to tell the difference between the church and the world. And he even says, I'm not even talking to you like a mature believer because I can't. You're still being controlled by your sinful nature. And then he talks about that we all have work to do. And that some work is really important and some work is not at all important, right? Is that what it says? We're all working together, and it's all working for God. And it's God, though, who causes the results of that work. And so it's not that quick and easy, raise your hand type of work. It's the day in, day out, the hard work. And it's the work that we're called to do in ourselves also. Because I think I talk about it in this article. The places where God in my life has caused significant growth and change has not been the easy raise your hand time. And it hasn't been the even walk to the front of the church time, which is maybe a little bit harder. It has been the times when you are on the floor, when you're crying, when you don't even think that there's going to be a tomorrow. And you frankly maybe wish there wasn't going to be. It's those heart-wrenching times when God really will step in and begin to work with people. And that's where the building really takes place, is sometimes there has to be a little bit of, we have to do some renovation. Now my question is, and it did give you an idea in this passage, what is it we're building? So Paul has gone from this farming analogy to a building analogy. What is it we're building?
Church.
The church. The church. And who is the church? Is it this building and whoever comes through here? No, it's the body of Christ. It's the believers. It could be the church in the home. It could be the church in the building like this, the congregation. It could be the church in the community. And that's what we are building. That's what God is building. But he tells us that we are responsible for doing some of this work. And in verses 12 through 17, I'll read you now, it tells us a little bit more about how we are to do this building. Beginning in verse 12, it says, anyone who builds on this foundation may use a variety of materials: gold, silver, jewels, wood, hay, or straw. But on the judgment day, fire will reveal what kind of work each builder has done. The fire will show if a person's work has any value. If the work survives, that builder will receive a reward. But if the work is burned up, the builder will suffer great loss. The builder will be saved, but like someone barely escaping through a wall of flames. Don't you realize that all of you together are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God lives in you? God will destroy anyone who destroys this temple, for God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Wow. So there's a lot in there for me, and this is where I really want to spend a little bit of time. So first of all, thinking about these materials, the building materials that we're building with. And what are we building again? The church, the body of Christ. Whether it's in the home, the community, or the church. We're building one another, together and individually. And it seems to me, by reading Paul's writing here, that, some of this building is done independently. We ourselves, me, Teresa, I have to build. You have to build too, but we're also building individually and corporately at the same time. So we're working together, but we're each responsible for our own work. And we each have our own materials. Now this is interesting, gold, silver, jewels, those are the materials we want to build the kingdom with. Wood, hay, and straw? Wow. Could we, the church, now he says it's the church, we might be building with wood, hay, or straw. That doesn't seem like very suitable building materials for something that will last. And in fact, it says that it doesn't last. There will come a judgment, and that will be burned up, right? And it's not going to have any value. But I think it's really difficult when we're in the midst of this life, in the midst of the building, in the midst of the construction, building your home, your family, your whatever you're building, to determine what is it I'm building with. Am I building with gold, or am I building with straw? And so this is a hint at what we're going to make today. I've made 2 building blocks here. Which one is gold and which one is straw? Which one's going to be burned up and which one is going to last? It's very hard to tell just from looking at them. Gold and straw might look really similar to one another, but they're not going to act the same when it's put through the fire. The straw is going to be consumed. So one of these might be straw and glass, and one might be gold and jewels. Now from this passage, I get the feeling like we may not be able to tell which is which, especially in someone else's life. Can I tell if you're building with straw and glass instead of gold and jewels? Maybe I can get a hint, but do I know for sure? It says it'll be revealed at the judgment time, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. So what does that mean? So we're still talking in these super spiritual terms, gold and straw. What does that really mean when we get down to it? What things last and what things don't? What do you think in your life or in the lives of people that you've seen? What types of things are built that don't last? And what types of things do last?
Trying to do God's work in our own strength.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Trying to do God's work in our own strength. Are there people who are doing really great work for God, for the church, and really good stuff, but they're doing it all from their own strength, or maybe with different motivation, you know? I think there are certainly people who have been raised in the church and everyone expected them to go a certain way. And so they go that way. Why? Because people expected them to, you know? Not because God said go this way, but because they're following other people's expectations. Is that gold or straw? That is straw. But wait a minute. What if they become a preacher, a really good preacher, and build a big church? Is that gold or straw? It's still straw. And, what if I work in the nursery and I don't have any skill in preaching or anything like that, but I rock babies really well. And I change diapers. And I just want to tell those babies about Jesus and all that he'll do in their life. Am I building with gold or straw? I hope, yeah, that sounds a little more golden to me than preaching thunderous sermons that bring in the big dollars and the people, but they're building my ego. But you might not be able to tell. You might not be able to tell the person rocking babies that are building with gold and the person who's up front is building with straw. But God can tell, all right? So what are some other things maybe that could be a little more straw-like?
Just our earthly wealth.
Our earthly wealth, yeah. Can good stuff be done with earthly wealth? Absolutely. As a support-raised missionary, I am grateful for people who have earned enough income that goes beyond the grocery bill that they can invest in foreign missions. Grateful for that. But if all of my focus is built on just building earthly wealth, getting that new car or, making sure that my lawn's perfect, that type of stuff, on Judgment Day, it's not going to matter if there's not a dandelion in my yard. It won't matter at all. Yeah. How about, there's a lot of super spiritual sounding things. Could you be a missionary and still be building with straw? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, I think sometimes in the church, when people are saying, I'm having trouble, my gold is not as pure as it should be. What could I, as a worker for God, come to the church and say, I'm struggling? And then how? I hope I could say that. But it's not easy, number one. And number two, the church does not always receive that well. If a person in ministry comes and says, I'm having some temptation in my life. My building materials are not all that pure. Now, hopefully, as a church body, we could come together and say, well, sister, let me help you there. Let me check in on you from time to time. Or how can I stay with you throughout the evening so that you can resist whatever it is that you're going through, or let me encourage you. That's the way we should be building together corporately. But what we like to do is I can be building my bricks like this and I'm checking them out. What we like to do is come up to each other and say, oh, that's not the way you do it. That's the way you do it. Oh, wait, nope. There we go. Now that's right. How do you feel when people come and push your bricks around? Now, it's really a fine line, and it's a difficult line to determine when you can come to a sister and say, I'm not sure that brick is in the right place. I've seen some things that may be indicating that there's a problem here, and I'd like to pray with you about that, or I'd like to talk to you about it. There's a way to do that. But there's also a way to come into someone's life and say, I'm going to nudge your brick over because you're doing it wrong. And the fact is we don't really know if she's doing it wrong because we don't know if she's building with straw or with gold. We just don't know. It might look one way to us, but we have no idea what's in her heart. In fact, let me share with you, I love this part that Paul goes on. I'm going to jump down a little bit and begin in verse 21. It says, so don't boast about following a particular human leader. Now there's something for for today's world. Don't boast about following a particular human leader, for everything belongs to you, whether Paul or Apollos or Peter or the world or life and death or the present and the future. Everything belongs to you, and you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. So look at Apollos and me as mere servants of Christ who have been put in charge of explaining God's mysteries. Now, a person who is put in charge as a manager must be faithful. As for me, it matters very little how I might be evaluated by you or by any human authority. I don't even trust my own judgment on this point. My conscience is clear, But that doesn't prove I'm right. It is the Lord himself who will examine me and decide. I just love that part with Paul. He says, my conscience is clear, but it doesn't mean that I'm right. And I don't even trust myself to pass judgment on myself. Wow, is it possible that I might not even know whether I'm building with gold or straw? So I will tell you, I don't think that I have any business telling you you need to move your bricks, okay? You are responsible for building the way that God has put in your heart that you need to build. It's not my place to tell you that you're wrong. Now, if I see something wrong, the Bible tells us we are to hold one another accountable, but I'll tell you, we need to do it with incredible humility, because we're not even in a position to be able to judge ourselves. So my conscience may be clear, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. I might think that I'm right. I might be really confident that I'm right, but it doesn't mean that I am. God will determine at the end whether we're building with gold or with straw. And so this journey that we're on together, this kingdom that we're building for God together, is not cause for pride. It is cause for great humility and love and grace with one another. We need to lavish the grace on one another. And if I come to you when I see your brick out of place with love and humility and grace, and I say, sister, could I help you here? Can I help you? And can you help me? Then we can build something that will withstand the fire together. But if we spend all of our time trying to make our bricks look good, then chances are they're going to be burned out in the fire.